Good afternoon, everyone. This is Michelle R. Maglinis, second year BA Ed student. This is the 7 instructional materials to consider in enhancing in delivering of our lessons. The first one is to develop storyboard and working outline based on the subject goals and objective. In this presentation, the learners will eventually recognize or familiarize the setup or outline of the said topic or the lesson. It is also a simple tool for any students, yet it's effective way to catch their attentions or interest in a way that they can explore their imagination by looking the setup or the storyboard. Examples of this are the painting, the pictures, the miniatures design, like the figures and even real objects. Just like we can see example of this is like in real estate. So when the customer wants to buy a house, so they have the presentation like a miniature of the structure of the building. So if we also compared it to the lesson, so the students will be more interested if they will see a storyboard or the outline of your lesson. That's all. Second instructional materials is to identify existing instructional resources, including materials and teaching capability. In this as a facilitator, we also consider the materials available in our surroundings that would fit to our learning instructionals. For example, in our role playing, so we need of course the actors or the actress to play, and then at the same time we need a videographer to catch to record the act, and then we need the right props to make the presentation realistic to the audience and itself. So like in a lesson, so when we present a lesson, so it should be our learning materials is fitted to the lesson that we are trying to understand or to imply to our learners, so they can understand what is the lessons all about. The third instructional materials to be considered is the teacher may research of the shelf materials that have been developed by others to determine if their approach could be useful. And as a educator or facilitator, we can improve our teaching way strategy through action research. This includes identifying the problem, learning about alternative approach, and implementing a new approach, and then observing the results, which is the student's effort and the test result. And by continuing to modify our strategy based on our own observations, the learner will accelerate in the learning progress. The next one is the fourth instructional materials to be considered is to explore the possibility of adapting concept of the other teacher without infringing on anyone's copyright protected design. The use of these protective materials is by copyright is essential to the learning process. As an educator, we can share our copyright materials in a licensed authorities them to do so, or if they benefit from a copyright exception. So the act permitted under certain exemptions such as recording or broadcasting for use in an educational establishment, or copying and use extract of works by educational establishment, are also allowed over secure distance learning networks controlled by those educational establishment. I think the best example of this is I don't know if you still remember the educational show in the ABCBN before, the Sinescuela. I think that's the best suitable example for this kind of copyright protected design, because they produced that set up, what is this one, set up to show to the learners the instructional materials, even though they are just watching the show. At the same time, the learners will gain some information, and they can apply it one day. So I think that's my explanation of this one. Fifth is to modify existing materials based on objectives of the lesson. In this modification may need to be made to every lesson, whether an open educational resource, a commercially produced resource, or materials developed at certain time. As an educator, we can use flashcards or visuals via the board or overhead. We let our students close their eyes and try to visualize the information we are trying to imply. Learning objectives defines learning outcomes and focus the teachings. It helps to clarify, organize, and prioritize learning, and it helps us and our learners to evaluate the progress and encourage them to take responsibility for their learning. Like I think my example of this, like in research in a science. So there's our specimen in the under the sea specimen. So as an educator, we are trying to we give them we will show them some instructional materials, like if we wanna show them the whales, the big whales, or a shark. So we show them pictures, and then we will try them to visualize the real fish through imagination, I think so. And then afterwards, we are trying to then we are explaining them what are the parts of that kinds of specimen. And I think that's my explanation of this instructional learning materials. Is if the instructional materials are not effective, and then you can share them with other teachers. My explanation about these instructional materials are there are many reasons, but the best one is this sharing because it promotes reflections and learning, and it makes us a better teacher. By sharing our instructional materials to other teachers, it can benefit also to our learning ability, and by welcoming new ideas from other teachers is a good thing also in other aspect of teaching. Like examples, if me I have materials that I know it can help to the other teachers. So in my case, so I'm sharing this to other teachers so I can help them. At the same time also, maybe there's something that it needs to be corrected. So at the same time, it's like reciprocal. I'm learning from them, and they are learning from me also. So it's a good benefits, not for me, not for her, but both of us. So I think um, um, sharing our instructional manuals is an effective also way, so we can benefits from each other. And I think that's my understanding with this instructional materials. The last instructional materials is if the teacher developer can also sell her or his materials available. My understanding with this one is through my perspective on teachers selling their resources has shifted in a way that I was also inspired by them. It is not about how much you earned from selling it, but how it may help and give idea and to inspire also the other teacher to reading your materials in a way that they can relate and apply the learning process they gain from your instructional materials. Instructional materials, selling instructional materials is overwhelming in my part if I know that my learning materials is can help to the other educator like me, and it can enhance to their learning strategy, like in a bookstore. I can see there's a lot of educators selling their books. So by reading their books or their research also, so of course the first thing we will think about is if we buy their books so they can earn money. But if we think about the deeper meaning of it, so when we buy their books, they are sharing their knowledge to us, and through reading that book we are learning something from that. And for sure one day for sure one day when we encounter some circumstances in our teaching, so we have the idea now on how to manage on how to handle or manage that certain situation, because we know some techniques or tips on how to overcome that kind of circumstances. I think that's my perspective about selling their instructional materials. I think that's the 7 instructional materials to be considered, and I think I explained it and everything that I understood with that, and thank you for watching my video, and bye bye.